Hey everybody, if you remember back a few weeks, Europart, the European side of Icon Motorsports, sent me the new Icon Variant Pro helmet to do a review on. I actually did request it because, if you're unaware, up until this point I have been using the Icon Variant, the original, for about 6 or 7 years. I've had two of them over that space of time and I absolutely love that helmet. So when they brought the updated variant out, I was very happy to get my hands on it, especially the one in the Totem design, which has got like a, I can't remember how it's pronounced, I don't think it's pronounced Hader, but I did do that before and I was corrected, but it's basically Native American style art. I happen to have a tattoo of an eagle on my arm in this style, which is very similar to that. So when I saw this, I was like, well, it's got to be, I've got to have it. I've already done a side-by-side in-depth comparison between the Icon variant, the old one, and the Pro. So this video isn't going to go into every single technical specification and difference because that video already exists and it's much longer than I want this video to be. This is just the review, my thoughts of it after I've used it for a few weeks and it's actually bedded into my head. Please ignore the accoutrements which are attached to this helmet. I have actually done a video doing the setup of this helmet where I attach my Cena and my camera setup for the vlogging that I do. I actually missed something in that comparison video that's not that important, but I want to show you it quickly now for completeness, because if someone's looking at getting one of these helmets, hopefully the 3 videos I've made will hold all the information they need. On the old Icon variant, the pads had this like plastic what do you call it, insert that goes down the side of the helmet, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see, I actually had to cut mine to get cables through it. This all sort of tucks up in here, and obviously if you want to get cable from the inside to the outside and you don't want to come out around here, you have to like make a hole. That was required to do like for the Cena and to add the mic on. On the Pro, the cheap pads don't have any of that stuff that goes off the side and down inside the helmet. It's straight Velcro. So when you put cables and stuff in here, you can actually just clamp that over the top of the cables and it will hold them in place. And there'll still be plenty of Velcro either side to hold the pad in place. So that's obviously very helpful when it comes to adding cameras and headsets and things like that. And as I say, I missed that in my original comparison, so I wanted to add that in here. One other thing I will say when it comes into terms of them adding functionality for these, they definitely did that because they put in the little divots for the speakers. I found that the speakers from things like Cena's are very, very directional. Like, you must have them directly in front of your ears, otherwise you lose like 50% of the volume. I noticed that from putting the speakers in the holes, they're actually not quite in the right place for my ears. I did move them as far across as I possibly can, and I definitely noticed a raise in the volume I could perceive, but it isn't as clear as when I'm using my other Icon, even though it doesn't have the holes cut in, because I can actually put the speakers exactly where I need them. Not so easy when it's actually got cut out. So that may be just something I experience, that could be something other people experience, maybe I've just got big ears. I've thought of a few questions that people would probably ask about the new Icon Variant Pro in comparison to the old one, or in general, and I'm going to try and answer those now. If you have any more questions, comment below, please do, and I'll try and answer them for you, but these are the ones that I think are going to come to mind. Simple question, is the Icon Variant Pro better than the original Icon variant? Yes, it is. Build quality wise, it feels better, and there is elements to its design that feel like they're going to be better for longevity, opposed to what we saw in the original variant. Things like the way that the stripping is attached, like the rubber stripping, and where the switch placement and stuff is and how the switches sort of work, it seems like this is better. It feels more refined. One of the things I really like about the original Icon variant is the peripheral vision from the helmet, and I find that this is just as good. That hasn't been reduced. You really can see as far wide as your eyes can naturally see. Obviously, I've only had this in the winter, so I can't tell you what it's like in the summer, but I've tried it with the vents open, and you can definitely feel a lot of air coming through your head into your face, very much like the old Icon variant. It was always very good for that. But once it's all closed off and you've got a neck scarf and stuff on, it feels closed enough that it's comfortable to use in the winter. That leads me on to fogging and whether they fog up. Do these say that they're anti-fog? I'm sure that there's some claim of them having some amount of anti-fog capabilities, and if they're clean, yes, they aren't too bad with fogging, but these do fog up if they're a little bit dirty. I've noticed it's far more increased by a bit of dirt on the inside. So these will fog up if the conditions are right for it. You could get a pin lock, but you'd have to obviously fit that yourself, unless Icon's now doing a pin lock. I'm not sure, they might be, they might not be. But a pin lock basically is an insert of a material which definitely doesn't get any condensation, fogging on it, and it means you can see clearly. But it has to stick directly to the inside of the visor for it to work properly. One of the other big questions that people have with these helmets is wind noise and drag, because people see this on the top and think, well, that's going to rip your head off if you lift your head up a bit at speed. The old Icon variant, I can say I've ridden with that up to, let me see, I was in Mexico, but I was doing about 140. And yeah, if I lifted my head right up, it would pull hard. But, 80, 90 miles an hour, it was okay. If you turned your head sideways, you would feel a drag on your head, pulling your head around a little bit, but it wasn't as bad as you would necessarily expect. I'm talking about the old one at the moment, by the way, but it was quite noisy. Like, there is quite a bit of wind noise with this helmet. It's not deafening, but it's definitely there, and I think a lot of it comes from this, but not just because it exists, but also because it's made of a very thin plastic that directly connects onto the shell of the helmet. And as you know, any taps on a helmet like that sound very loud inside. So I think the wind rushing over this thin plastic was vibrating the shell and causing this helmet to be noisier than it necessarily needed to be. With the new visor, I've actually noticed less drag. I think that might be because it's a little bit smaller, maybe it's because it's got bigger vents coming through it or something, or the angle's slightly different, but I can say that the drag of this helmet feels less. I've not had it up to the same sorts of speeds. I haven't been back to Mexico, but in, faster motorway stuff, it feels like it's got less drag than the old one. I also feel like it's quieter than the old helmet, and I do, as I say, think that's down to the fact that now we have a much more rigid visor on the front. It's also kind of rubberized, as is the surface of this, and I think that might actually be taking some of the vibrations out, bit from being transferred through. So wind noise and drag seems to be reduced compared to the old one. If you live in America, finding somewhere to buy one of these helmets isn't going to be difficult because they're very much bigger in America than they are in the UK. If you live in the UK or in Europe, then the easiest way to find out where you can buy one of these on the street, as it were, there are websites that sell Icon, there's a few of them. But if you actually want to go to a shop and try one on, if you go to Europart's website, there's a couple of links in the description they've asked me to give you, which basically is one of them, I think, is a catalogue to all the things that they do, and the other one is their website where you can put in where you live and it will find the most local dealer for you to be able to go and look at their products. And while we're talking about UK Europe, a lot of people ask this because they see the DOT approval on the back of the helmet and they say, right, well, that's okay for America. Is it ECE approved? They don't notice that there is an ECE number directly underneath that. The reason it's bigger on here is because obviously they sell most of their helmets in America, but they have got the certification written down there. I always advise, if you can, going to a shop and trying a helmet on before you buy it, because it's so important to get the fitment right, to do with the shape that they've designed the helmet around. And there is a difference in this between these two helmets. They did make a big change and I have noticed it. The old helmet was the European style shape. Now, to my understanding, that is a more elongated oval shape and taller, whereas in the American cut is rounder and shorter. And I think I can testify to that because I've noticed that wearing this helmet, it was quite tight to start with, like all Icon helmets. Well, my experience with Icon variants, they're great to be tight to start with because when they give, not too tight, mind, but when they give, it becomes very, very comfortable. And my original Icon variant is like a glove to my head. It fits perfectly, and that's not a loose fit, that is just a perfect, nice, snug fit. Might have thicker padding, might aid to that, but it feels like a slightly better fit because where I'm wearing this, even though it's bedded in now, I can definitely feel more pressure on my forehead, sort of front to back. The sides don't feel any different, so it definitely feels like maybe I have a European style longer oval shape, and obviously when they rounded that for the shape of this, it adds pressure to the front and back. Thankfully, there is still a little bit of give to go in this helmet, I think. Even though it's been a month, I definitely think helmets bed in for a couple of months over time, as the padding just, it learns where it's not going to get squished, as it were. It's not uncomfortable after a long time. It doesn't leave big marks on my forehead. If it was much tighter, it probably would be a problem. So it's worth noting that if you had the original Icon variant and your forehead felt pinched in that, then it's going to be worse in the equivalent size of helmet. My old one was a large. This one is a large. This does feel a little bit tighter. That might be because the shell size might be different, because the way they kind of do helmets is they have a shell size and then they put different size padding inside them to make in between sizes. So you might have 2 or 3 shell sizes across the range from extra small to extra large. So yes, that does mean that sometimes a helmet looks a lot bigger on someone than someone else, because say that they've got one that's the smallest size that they do for that size of shell compared to someone who's got the largest size they do for that size of shell, it means you can end up with a helmet that looks too big. This, as you will have seen in some of the footage I've shown you while I've been talking, I think it looks very sharp, it looks very cool, it looks a little sleeker and smaller. Although size-wise comparison next to each other, there isn't a huge amount in it. Now, as you know, I am very well known for using a mirrored visor. I absolutely love the mirrored visors. I have a video on the law about these in the UK. They aren't technically legal to use, but it doesn't seem like anyone's too fussed by that as long as they're used responsibly. But I actually have had a problem with the new mirrored visors. To my understanding, the way these mirrored visors are made is they take a standard clear visor and then they coat the inside with something, somehow, I'm not sure how they do it, that basically gives you that mirrored coating. This visor is off my original Icon variant and it is a couple of years old. It's seen a lot of, gloves shoved in helmet, being cleaned, getting stuff in it and rubbing it off. The inside coating is not indestructible, but it is fairly tough. And on this old, it's very smudgy here, but on this old one you can see that there isn't any areas that the silvering is coming off. There is some light scratching, but that's just something that can happen over time. You just kind of accept it. The same with normal visors. They scratch over time. This is the first visor that came with the new Icon Variant Pro, and within a few days this coating just seemed to be coming off without doing anything to it. I emailed Europart about this and they said, oh, that is very unfortunate, sorry about that. Make sure you're not using any chemicals or anything like that when you're cleaning it, yada, 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 And I said, yes, I know that because I've already had one of these for years and I've not had this problem happen. They said, well, let's send you another one, see how it goes. Oh, one thing I didn't mention in my setup video that I got very lucky with is that when you take this off, this bit pivots down. Had I not put this camera on Velcro, I would not be able to get my peak off. I will also note that the side of this has got a bit of a contour going through it, unlike the original variant, which was quite flat and was great for mounting cameras. There's very small amounts of flat space in here. It would be nice if the companies that make the helmets keep in mind that this area here would be ideal if it was flat, especially if you've gone to the efforts of putting a headset speaker hole in, because we want to stick stuff to helmets and we need flat surfaces. Tricky to get styling and do that, I know. Anyway, quick reminder of how this comes off. Just rotate that down. Doesn't involve any screws like the old one. Lift the visor up. Pull it out. You think you're going to break it, but this is what you have to do. So as I was saying, they sent me another visor, and as you can see, in the matter of just a few rides, where I grab the inside of this with my thumb with my gloves, it's completely worn off the inside coating. In fact, I've noticed it's more than just that spot, it's the whole thing again. I did contact Europart about this and said that, the first one you sent me had the problem. I've been sent another one, it's got a problem. To me, it seems like you might have a manufacturing issue going on. I don't know. They know how to do it right. Obviously, they've done it in the past and it's worked absolutely fine. So I'm fully confident they're going to sort this issue out. But I wanted to let them know about it and say that I was going to mention it in my review. And they said that's absolutely fine. They don't think that it's a widespread issue. They think it may be just a batch of them. And they've said that if anyone buys one of these helmets and gets one of the mirrored visors and you have this problem, contact them and they're going to replace it without question. At the moment, they've just got to find out how widespread this is or whether it really is just something I've experienced through sheer bad luck. As I always say, my reviews are always very open and honest. And I said to them, look, I'm going to have to mention this, and props to them for saying, do it. You have to be honest with your audience. We're going to do our part to make sure that if this ever happens to anyone, they're covered and it's sorted. And they've offered to give me yet another visor, but of the non-mirrored ones until they sort out the issue, if there is an issue. So I might well do that. I might try one of the normal smoked ones, because I've never really tried those ones before. I've only ever tried the mirrored ones, but I've really liked these for how much glare they remove. And they look cool. I would just like to point out here that had they said to me, please don't mention that, I either would have refused to do the review or I probably would have mentioned it anyway. But they didn't do that. They did something that not a lot of companies do this day, which is this day and age, which is say it's fine to talk about it, be honest with your audience, we want honesty, we want openness, and we promise you that anyone who has this issue, not just you because you're you're a reviewer, anyone that comes to them with this issue, they're going to make sure they're sorted and it's all right. As I say, huge props to them for that. That shows some honesty and integrity and willingness to put your hands up when something might have gone wrong and sort it when it does. Just while I'm popping the clear visor back on for now, huge thanks to my Patreon supporters who are going up your screen. You helped me to continue making these videos and you make it possible for me to be able to live and still do this in this day and age. So thank you for your support, I massively appreciate it. Well, there you go. There is my review of the Icon Variant Pro. I think it is a good improvement, a good move forward, a tightening down, a refining of an old classic that I think is going to become a new classic. I think I've probably covered absolutely everything anyone would want to know about the Icon Variant Pro, between the comparison between the old one video, this new setup of this one, and this review. I can't think of any questions that are left. But if there are, comment below and I will answer those for you the best I can. Thank you for watching. Please smash that like button and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye. If you enjoyed this video and the other content on the channel, please consider following the links in the description to show your support.